Next up, while calls for police reform have been the main focus surrounding systemic racism in law enforcement, there are plenty of other aspects of the legal system that play a role as well. To that end, the Middlesex County District Attorney's Office just created a new dedicated position aimed at addressing issues of equity and discrimination. I'm joined by DA Marian Ryan, along with the new Director of Racial Justice Initiatives, Antonia Soares Thompson, a former public defender, and most recently, the Restorative Justice Project Coordinator at the Mayor's Youth Services Bureau in Stamford, Connecticut. Antonia, good to meet you, and District Attorney, thanks for joining me.
Nice to be here.
Marian Ryan, can I start with you? Give me an example of the kind of racial justice initiatives you're talking about.
So there's really three kinds of things we're looking at. One is making sure that the people on our staff, the prosecutors who are going into court every day making charging decisions, are meaningfully conversant on the issues of racial justice and what it means to look at a case through a racial equity lens. The second is more outward facing. How do we best collaborate with the stakeholders, with our police departments, and earn the trust of the communities that we're serving? And the third is, how do we always have in our mind, given the power that prosecutors have, that we do not have, that we lessen the disproportionate impact that the criminal justice system has on some of our communities?
So when you eliminated cash bail for people unlikely to be sentenced to jail time several years ago, that, I assume, had it not happened, would have fit neatly within that triumvirate. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, that's true.
Okay.
As well as things like
Antonia,
supporting the elimination of mandatory minimum sentences, lots of those pieces.
Antonia, how do you see your job? What do you think you're doing?
So I'm really excited to start this position. I think just as DA Ryan had just mentioned, it's about bringing positive outcomes to the communities that have been disproportionately impacted by the criminal justice system. Prosecutors have significant power in the trajectory of how an outcome of a case could be that directly impacts the people that are before them. So this position and the conversations, the tough conversations that we're going to be having with our DAs and the community, hopefully we will see the end result will be that the outcomes will be fair and just and equity will be served within our communities.
I want to talk about that community in one particular part of it. Last week, Rosa Brooks was here, who's a Georgetown law professor who decided to become a volunteer cop for 4 years in D.C. She wrote a book called Tangled Up in Blue, and she wrote about the training in which the cops in training never heard one word about racism, but every single day they heard about how much their lives were at risk. Every single day they went out into the community, which to some degree doesn't justify but explains some of the behavior. Will you be able to address that kind of issue with police? Without them, the case doesn't even get to the prosecutor. Is that part of your jurisdiction or no, Antonia?
Jim, it's not just a question of will we be able to. We have been doing that. Over the last few years, we've brought national experts to meet with our 54 police departments on issues about bias, on de-escalation, and particularly dealing with mental health issues.
By the way, are these 54 police departments bought into this initiative, or you're just hoping they're bought into the initiative?
You know, I think that everybody, this is a learning curve. We certainly have departments that recognize the need to be having these conversations and making these moves.
You know, Antonia, back to you for a second. When you, I read a little bit about what you did in Stamford, and restorative justice there was to a great degree focused on schools. Is your sense that that sort of diversionary kind of thing could work with adults, could work in the Middlesex? Give me an example of what you're thinking about.
Sure. I believe a lot of times when we have low-level crimes, as a diversionary, restorative justice allows for the perpetrator of the crime and then the victim of that crime to come together and have an honest conversation about the consequences. How did this person's action affect a victim? And sometimes we don't have that conversation. Sometimes we just go to court and we think about punishment and everyone walks to their corners. But I think restorative justice allows some healing to happen so that a person understands what were the consequences that impacted this person that I did this to. Say, it's a robbery of a car and it was a radio or something that was taken, but yet the victim had worked really hard to earn that radio, to work the extra hours. And sometimes you need, especially with youth and young adults, for them to hear that, to understand this impulsive, bad choice that I made really impacted someone in a significant way. Now that's a simpler crime, but as we elevate to more serious crimes, it does allow for the dialogue to happen and the community to heal from that process. So when we do see that in the court, as a diversionary program, whether it is from juveniles or for young adults just entering the system, we hope that will just change the way as recidivism goes down, as people committing crimes.
So, District Attorney, I know you're the boss in that office, but is the average prosecutor who's been trained a certain way with a certain mindset about what his or her job is, are they ready for something like what Antonia just described, a different way of doing business?
It is not new here, Jim. Under my leadership, the office over the past 8 years has really taken a different view. We have a very robust diversion program. As you know, I collaborated with Senator Eldridge in writing the Restorative Justice Bill. We have been using it in Middlesex County for over 7 years. So people coming through our office, this is already a well-entrenched part of the people we're picking to come to the office and the way we are training them. We represent the values of the people who have put me here in this job.
Marian, Ryan, was there something in particular that caused you to decide what we're doing is not enough? We need a point person like Antonia to be coordinating all this. Was there a specific event or moment, or is it just a grand progression of things?
It is really a progression. As we've been working through this, conversations we've been having as we've been developing these projects, we're all busy, and it really became clear to me that we needed to have an internal voice whose primary responsibility was making sure that we were always doing this. We were all looking at every challenge, every charging decision with that lens.
Okay, so I live in Middlesex County. Let's assume the two of you are back on the show in, 2 years. How will I know if Antonia has succeeded at her job, Marian, Ryan?
I think there'll be a number of ways. I think you will see, as we have begun seeing in Middlesex County, we will see the results of using these diversionary programs. You will see that this is, I think, a really amazing thing, and I've been in the office long enough that it is amazing. Last year in the city of Cambridge, and the sprawl and population of Cambridge, we had only 10 juveniles who were placed under arrest. That is a very dramatic change. When you think about the collateral consequence of someone being arrested, having a criminal record, to be able to reduce that number, that's a partnership, and that is a dramatic result. So there are going to be, I don't think we should do things and not be able to measure them. There will be very tangible continuing signs of the way our cases have declined, our recidivism declines, and the partnerships and community impact that we're having.
I look forward to that discussion. Marian, Ryan, good to see you. Antonia Soares Thompson, good luck in your new job. Look forward to talking to you as well.
Thank you.